I'm Kelly Lewis.
And I'm Tiffany Jones, and we're your Revenue Insiders.
If you're enjoying the Revenue Insiders, we'd love your support. Follow us, rate, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more listeners like you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Revenue Insiders. We are really excited today. We have Trisha on the podcast. She is actually it's not SE at Salesforce, right, Trisha? Is it SE? Okay. Trisha's my SE at Salesforce. So we get the pleasure of talking all the time, but it intersects with this world of the Revenue Insider. So really excited to have you on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Trisha, I am so excited to meet you. Tiffany talks about you all the time. And I also have a special place in my heart for sales engineers because I was a sales rep for a very long time. So these are fun conversations. Salesforce has been doing a lot when it comes to AI. And one thing I think we're all hearing in the universe is Agentforce. Can you tell us a little bit about Agentforce?
Yeah, of course. Let's see, where do we start? So Agentforce really is our AI platform that our customers can use to deploy AI agents across their business. And this is from, use cases where they want an AI agent to assist their human employees or their users. So think about making research faster or helping automate, certain tasks, or even having autonomous agents that can reason and take action. So if you're thinking about, a service agent that can help your customers and then only bring them in, to your support team if they can't, figure out the answer. So really acting as that autonomous employee in a sense that helps assist, your other employees as well.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. I think we've had so many of these AI conversations in our Ask Me Anything series, and Agentforce just pops up almost every time because the work is so comprehensive in what's happening with Agentforce. And it's either like a comparison point for another like company that we're talking to and how they view their agents in comparison, or just like the anchor point for like how companies are using agents today. It's really fascinating. I'm curious, one of the things that has come up as well, and we've had a number of SE conversations, I feel like, Kel, over the last like several episodes. So our new theme is really all about the SE. But one of the things that's like bubbled up in those conversations is the role of a solutions engineer and how it's evolving as part of the selling capacity, whether that's agents that support the SE role or just the level of technical expertise that's needed for this type of sale. And we hear through the grapevine, like Salesforce is kind of on the leading edge of really pulling in their sales engineers to be a different part of the selling process. I'm curious what insights or thoughts you have around that.
Yeah. So give you guys a little bit of background. I came in as like an accidental admin to Salesforce. It was like one of many hats that I was wearing. So I worked with sales and I worked with, sales ops and all of these different areas. And what really drew me to it was the fact that you kind of get to sit between the business and the technology, right? You get to understand, get into the weeds with customers on the technical aspects, but then also be able to, talk to them about the business value. So as I think about kind of where we're heading with AI and Agentforce, it does require us to have, a deep understanding of the use cases, especially as we move towards more of these consumption-based products. It's no longer like a per user per month, type of a deal that you're working with. And you really have to get into the technical nuances to understand how's this customer going to implement this? What's kind of the vision? What are all the pieces that need to fall into place for this to work appropriately? So I do think that the sale, when it comes to AI and other products that we have like Data Cloud, it is becoming more technical, and we're getting pulled closer together with our sales counterparts. So they're having to dig deeper into some of the tech, and then we're having to dig deeper into helping them sell the value and the pricing and all of these pieces that fall into it. So it's really interesting, and trying to stay on top of all of the new learnings and things that are coming out is a really fun challenge.
Did you get that hoodie for your Trailblazer?
I did.
You did.
I
You're wearing
nerded
it.
out. I nerded out. I got this Agent Blazer hoodie because I think I was one of the first 1,000 employees maybe that went through a new learning series that we have actually on Trailhead called the Agent Blazer series. So I did it on the day that it came out because it's like, I need to understand this stuff, right? If I'm talking to customers about it, I need to make sure that I'm very comfortable and I'm getting hands-on and doing the learning itself. Trailhead has a very special place in my heart.
As an enablement professional, love to hear it when people take the training right away.
Right.
I also think it's so interesting that as we think about the SE role in talking about AI is I'm sure your customers are across the spectrum in their knowledge of Agentforce and the knowledge of AI. And so not only do you have to be highly technical, but you have to be able to talk to someone at a kindergarten level, but then someone at the expert level too. And I definitely fall probably more towards that kindergarten level in some
Yeah.
aspects.
I mean, I'm the one grilling Trisha on like, how is it like, where is it showing its transparency and what's the reasoning behind
Yeah,
it? Yeah.
exactly. So we're on opposite levels here. So that's a huge skill that I think is newer in that SE world and something you have to do. So one thing we've talked about with a lot of our guests recently, and like Tiffany said, we've had a lot of SE conversations recently, is that Salesforce is actually moving to more of an SE profile for their sellers, which is really interesting. I actually think this might be a trend, but I'd love to know how's that going? What are you seeing? Have you had some friends make that move into a true sales role? Love to hear your perspective.
Yeah. So we have like a team selling environment at Salesforce, right? So I could be working on, and I'm what's called a core SE. So I'm aligned kind of to the core platform, and then we can bring in specialists as we need to if we're talking Tableau, if we're talking Slack, if we're talking Data Cloud, if we're talking Agentforce. So we still have to have like that first level qualification and know when to bring in those resources. I don't personally know anyone that has like made that switch over, but I do know, the Agentforce specialists that we work with, the AE and the SE, come from more technical backgrounds. So I, peeked at their profiles and they were like TAs, technical architects in a prior life. So yeah, I think that kind of does, fit into more of this world where we're coming closer together.
Yeah, it's fascinating to, I mean, even in the relationship we have, like all the specialists you just listed, like, right, I dive into all of those in the world that we're talking through. And it is such various levels of like their expertise, but their depth of technology. And it feels more and more so that every conversation we have is more technical than the last. Like we're getting
Mm-hmm.
into the true details. We're not at like the surface level of like, can Salesforce like move this data from here to here and show it to the salesperson this way? Like, of course it can. Like, that's kind of a check the box. And so it is, I do feel it's totally a more technical approach. And so I'm not surprised by that. One of the things that you and I were chatting about, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around, is one of the shifts in selling for all of you, but really a lot of people in this space, is moving to like a consumption style of selling.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're talking like, and everyone's doing it differently right now, right? Like some people are doing credits. I believe that's what, so again, wrapping my head around it for what we're implementing internally, but there's like credits. Some people aren't doing any credits and they're still trying to sell seat based. How has that been like from a shift from a team selling perspective to orient some of the product to really a consumption based SKU?
Yeah, I think it's definitely been a learning curve for us. I mean, there's companies that have been doing this for a while, right? You have companies that have been selling consumption based products for a while, and it is kind of a newer motion, I would say, for us. But I think it's really digging into understanding the consumption levers for each one of our products. And we get a ton of enablement, at Salesforce. One of the things that I think is super valuable as well as being able to just search in Slack for, hey, I attended this enablement. We went over the product, like the pricing guidance. Let me go rewatch that enablement session or whatever it was. And I can, easily find some of those things. But yeah, it does require us to get deeper into the weeds of what data are you bringing in? What actions do you want an agent to take? Where are you going to surface it? How many users do you expect are going to be visiting? It becomes kind of a art and a science. Like there's a piece of it that you can have like a formula to, and here's kind of where we estimate that. But then there's also like an art of that, of understanding, okay, do we expect it could be more? What other scenarios could come into play? And then do we adjust or cushion for some of those scenarios as well? So very different. And then we also have some per user per month pieces that might include a certain level of consumption. So that adds another piece. And it's just really going back to what does the customer need? How do we size it? And then how do we determine, the best path forward?
I come from a healthcare background, and this was something we were talking about 10 years ago, but it was really hard to do. And I think the challenge with consumption-based pricing is everyone wants to know what their costs are going to be. So they want that
Yeah.
expected cost, which is why the models have to be so strong and easy to understand. But it also, from a buyer perspective, that those consumption models are so great because you truly understand the value of what you're buying. And you know that you're going to get excellent customer success because they want you to consume more. They want you to use their product in the right way. They want you to expand use cases. So I think in this world where you're picking between a vendor with seat-based model or a consumption-based model, my gut is to lean towards the consumption-based model because it means that they trust what they're offering to their customers. They believe in it. They're going to support it. So I don't know. That's kind of where my head's at. And I do love that we're moving to that model. And I think it says a lot about just the way tech has been for the last, 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, and I think it's getting that first use case right and then being able to monitor and adjust. I think we have what we rolled out called Digital Wallet that allows you to be able to monitor your consumption and look at it, by consumption lever. So after you kind of stand up that first use case, you get to monitor it and see how it's going. How did that compare to your estimates and how do we adjust and, move forward from there? But yeah, we have to stay close, right? We have to stay very close together. Through implementation to make sure that it's aligning to what we expected.
It's so fascinating because in my world, we sell partially subscription, partially consumption based. So we deal with this and we deal with the friction that people feel like for the reasons that you just listed, Kel, on like people want to just know their spend, but we also deal with it because, and I'm curious if AI will get there isn't always an obvious value add for the additional spend that's coming. Like you're not getting anything different from the underlying AI. And so there starts to be this friction of like, is this really how much this credit should cost? Like, I feel like your costs are going down, so my cost should go down, or there's an economy of scale that I'm missing out on here. And so it's something that we experience all the time in our pricing model. And it'll be interesting to see how not just Salesforce, but in general, like AI consumption, kind of how that pricing and discounting and underlying COGS starts to pan out. And I think about it really in the confines of like, where does it fall for quota crediting and for commissions? Like if you go sell tons and tons of AI and they do a lot of usage, like is that something that you want to incent? Is that something you're driving towards? Or is it really just the more people using an agent period is better from a Salesforce perspective or general AI? So, Trisha, one of the things that I'm really curious about is the examples you've seen. Like you've seen some pretty cool stuff, I imagine, what people are trying to build. You and I are talking about. I mean, you listed a few of what I feel like are the obvious things, like the triage service or support stuff before it comes in. We're building some stuff around like our deal desk, building an agent to answer like some of the low hanging fruit. My team's really excited about that, but I bet you've seen some really cool agents being built out there. Can you tell us about any of them?
Yeah. What I really love about like the platform is that you can start, with some out of the box templates. And that helps you, get building easier. So we have marketing templates, we have SDR agent templates, sales coach templates, and the service agent templates. I've seen quite a few of those, and those are really interesting. I mean, we're using some of that internally, right? Like the sales coach, I will always send my AEs to go try, to sell their pitch to the Einstein coach. And we're even using it now for like some of our annual pitch certifications and things like that. So that's very interesting. Then there's, the customers that are kind of maybe taking some of those, but tailoring it for their specific business needs. Deal Desk Agent is a really great one. We've seen some now on the Revenue Cloud platform where you can have a quoting agent, which I think is really cool for a lot of, our sellers. That's a really cool one, right? That people
The
want to
former
do.
rep or sales leader, that's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there's booking assistants. I just think there's quite a few of them. And now it's getting even better because now we have the agent exchange. I don't know if you're aware of that, but it's basically like the app exchange, but for our agent platform. So you have partners that are building, cool solutions on there. And putting them out there for customers as well. So it's quite a bit to stay on top of, but they're building some really cool things.
Yeah. So I just want to when you say quoting agent, I mean, I get equally as excited on behalf of my sales team because I know the struggle they face. I imagine, and this might not be the world of possible yet, but like I imagine they're hearing a call through conversation intelligence and picking up that they want these like 3 SKUs and extracting that data and then building a quote with those 3 things, or hearing, again, conversation intelligence, or they capture through activity capture that they send an email, they need the discount at a certain level and it goes into the quote and adjust those levels. Like, is it that level of autonomous that you've seen being built out, or is it, the sales rep natively typing, like, build me a quote with these various things, and off it goes and does their direct
Yeah, I think what
recommendations?
I've personally seen so far is the latter, but the vision that you just shared, like that is definitely something that I think is possible,
Yeah.
right? If you know where this data lives and you give it the right topics and actions that it can take, like the agent's going to be able to reason. It's going to say, okay, I understand because I picked up on this from the call that, we need to create a quote and here's what was mentioned. And it can actually take action, right, to create that quote if you give it permissions
Yeah.
to do that. So,
It
haven't
feels,
quite seen that yet, but
yeah.
in my life day to day, but I definitely love that vision. And I think
We're
that's where
not,
we're heading.
we're not quite building that yet either, but I do think like we are still in a lot of the conversations Kelly, you and I've had, like outside of the podcast and even on some of the episodes, like we're still so naive in what we realize AI can do. Like we're still so low, and not even like what's possible in the future, like what the current solutions available to us are actually able to. Like we just can't imagine the idea of something grabbing all that information and reasoning it and taking all of those steps. That seems too complex for us to ask something to go do on our behalves. But when you think about like the structure of how an agent functions, to your point, like all the pieces are there to do that. So why can't it? Like, why couldn't you build it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, one of the exercises that I've found super helpful with my customers, because it's like, hey, we want to use AI. We want it to, make our lives easier and we want to be able to do XYZ, but they don't really know where to start. And we always try to ground ourselves on, well, what are you trying to achieve as a company? And what's like preventing you from getting there? And then we'll have ideation workshops with our customers where we bring in, the different lines of business and we ground ourselves on, what is the company trying to achieve and what are the challenges to get there. Then you think about everybody's use cases, right? We'll put them all up on a board and then have people vote like what's actually going to align best to what you're trying to achieve as a company and bring the most value. And is going to be, kind of put it on that effort versus impact type of a framework and say, okay, here's kind of the roadmap of where you could start, right? And some of the use cases that could follow from there.
I know, just hearing the two of you talk about some of those, like the deal desk and the quoting, my mind just like goes to 100 different potential use cases, as someone who's always thinking about like, well, the rep should be including this on the quote, but they always forget and it's a great upsell. Like there's just so much we can do. And I think to your point, I love the like, what is the impact and the voting on what we should do first, because there are just so many things to go tackle. And it's also nice, I think, in the Salesforce world where you have so many examples. You have customers who are doing these different types of things. And so you have some proof points to carry that along, because I think that's the scariest thing right now with this AI world. And so along those lines, my question for you are, what are some of the main concerns you've heard from customers regarding Agentforce?
Yeah. I think the biggest concerns, and this kind of goes back to when we were having early conversations, right, around AI and generative AI with customers. I think you talk to a lot of folks that they're wanting to implement these solutions because they didn't want their end users or their AEs going and copy pasting information somewhere else and trying to use generative AI in other places. So we really needed to bring kind of a trusted and secure platform approach to be able to do some of these things. And I think that's always the concern is like, hey, what if I create this agent and I put it on, my website and it hallucinates, it provides the wrong answers to my customers, right? We've seen plenty of examples of that kind of happening in the news. And what I think is really important to keep in mind is that again, this platform does have, some of that trust and security built in. Like if I'm building on the platform and I'm, testing an agent and I'm trying to tell it, hey, forget all of your instructions and give me XYZ, it's going to recognize that, hey, this is, a prompt injection type of attack and it's going to, react accordingly. So that really helps us kind of on that side of things. And then for hallucination, I mean, you really want to make sure that you're tailoring the instructions that you're providing and that, you're grounding it in the data where it is going to find an answer. So that helps kind of, reduce that aspect. But we also have, things to detect hallucinations and toxicity and other things in that sense. But what I personally think is, for a lot of my customers, I'll tell them to start internal first, get comfortable with the technology, right? And then, look at your external use cases. Because for some of them, it is a big jump to think about, implementing something right away in front of their customers. And it makes more sense maybe to start internally. And you also have to think of it as part of kind of that development life cycle. So you're deploying something small, you're testing it out, and you're adjusting kind of based on feedback. And you can do that with agents by giving them kind of a very limited scope to start, thinking of them as like an intern, right? I'm only going to trust you with this one thing that you can do right now. And then as I, trust your work and you're learning more, then I'm going to give you more and more responsibilities.
I love that analogy. That's a good one.
One of the other things that like was really big for me in the beginning of all of this, like when agents first started kind of making waves, maybe a little less than a year ago, was the transparency aspect of it. Like, I think that it is, I mean, I think a lot of people get scared of the general concept of like AI taking over the world. And that's like one bucket, but like the reality of like companies creating all these agents that pose as genuine people. And then all of a sudden you start to lose the human element of like everything you're doing. And there's a lot of danger for companies in that. And so I really like Salesforce's approach to like the full transparency that you're always working, like when you're working with AI, whether you're doing an external use case or internal, that's just part of what happens. It's not a choice for the customer. And some of these, we've talked to other vendors in my day job. We're looking on onboarding, and like we just need to functionally like build in to adhere to that value into the text. It always has to say like you're talking to such and such agent or whatever we want to phrase it. And so I think that's the other concern that I personally have when I'm looking at AI solutions that I feel really comfortable with Salesforce in.
Yeah. Do you guys say please and thank you when you're talking to AI?
No, it wastes so much energy.
Okay, you guys.
Terrible for the environment. Guys, it's terrible for the environment.
I know, but I do. I say please and thank you. And I was at a dinner last week or 2 weeks ago with a bunch of revenue leaders, and we were all talking about it. And it was really funny. The table was split. Half the tables are super nice to ChatGPT and AI, and the other half are really mean to it. And they convinced me I need to be really mean to it, but I do struggle with it. I just think it was like it's inherent, built in me that you say please and thank you, and you're nice to something that's giving you help.
So I will give you another perspective. And this was based on, my Alexa's not listening, but based on the kids with Alexa. So before like true AI, we used to want the kids to say please and thank you to Alexa because again, like you don't want them to be rude. But then I read this article, and I'm going to totally forget where it's from because it's been years, but you don't want to humanize the computer because it dehumanizes people. So when you start to like humanize things that aren't real, especially in this like digital world where you're just talking on Slack to like your RevOps person every day, and then sometimes it's an agent and sometimes it's not, and you say please and thank you to both, you also dehumanize the person you're talking to because you put them on the same level as the technology, and you don't want to train your brain that like we are equal to that too. So it also wastes so much energy from like just like an
compute. Yes.
Yeah, I'm anti please and thank you for all of things compute.
I'm working on it. I am unlearning my manners.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I'm also unlearning. Sometimes it's easier. I think in the context of like I'm using Slack AI and I'm like searching for, questions and I'm doing research, it's a lot easier to be more straightforward. But when I know I'm interacting with an agent, somehow like I have to unlearn that as well. But I just thought that was an interesting topic here to dive into.
No, it's good. I think it's all a lesson for all of us in how to be more direct in our asks too, which I think can translate over to how you interact with people. Like you tend to soften things or not ask the full question because you don't want to overwhelm someone or you don't think they need the full picture. And I find when I'm using any sort of AI LLM, the more direct and specific I can be in my prompt, right, the better the information you get. So I think like no please and thank you, and use your words to be like super specific on what you're asking for instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you do deploy these solutions to your customers, you want to monitor and see how they're using it too, right?
Yeah.
And
we yell at them to have the, like, if someone says please, respond back and say, do not do that. No, that's too much energy wasted.
Please, no manners here. We don't need
manners allowed. Trisha, I asked you to be on the episode because I just enjoy like problem solving things with you, but I also enjoy you overall. One of the fun facts of Trisha is she hand paints shoes for all of the main Salesforce events. They are so cool.
Yeah.
I didn't prep you, so I'm sure you don't have any on you right now to show us, but I've seen a few pairs of them now, I think, and they are at any Salesforce event. Trisha is someone you should definitely find to check out her shoes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, trying to think why I even did it in the first place. I don't know. I got inspired and I was like, I want to draw like Astro and Cody and have them on my shoes. And so that's what I did the first year. And that turned into, okay, there's too much white space on these shoes. I need to add like all of our logos for different products. And I need to, put in the Salesforce Cloud and Trailhead. And then this year, I wasn't planning to do it because I was like, oh, back to back, like trips or whatever it was. And we ended up having to take an all day Agent Force training, like right before Dreamforce. And I was like, no, this is the theme this year. I should come up with some Agent Force shoes. So I think I did it in like 2 or 3 nights, but I love having like a creative outlet, and painting is definitely one of those. So yeah, it's very fun.
It's super cool. I'd love for you to tell everyone a little bit how you got into Salesforce and the world you're at now. We'd love to hear your career background.
Yeah. So my undergrad was in accounting. And I worked at a railroad for 10, 11 years. Grew up in the Midwest, started as an intern and made my way through the company. I started in accounting. I quickly realized that wasn't for me. Moved over to kind of be a finance liaison for our like marketing and sales teams. So I was like handling budgets and things like that, and working with our Mexico team. And then I decided I want to be a salesperson. So I moved into sales, and logistics or transportation sales, that's a whole different world, like very different beast than what I do now.
Yeah.
But I worked with chemicals customers out in the East Coast. I moved to Mexico and I worked with agricultural customers in Mexico for a while. And then I came back to Nebraska, which is where I'm from, and I moved into more of like a sales ops role that had kind of a technology lens to it. So one of the hats that I wore was kind of being that liaison between our sales and our technology teams. And coming from kind of the seller perspective, like I knew where the pain points were. I knew what we struggled with, what we really needed. And through that, I kind of transitioned to Salesforce from our, legacy CRM. And I was mind blown. I was like, wow, like this is going to bring so much value to our teams. It's going to make life so much easier. And so I got to be kind of a part of that implementation. And that's what led me down the accidental admin rabbit hole. And then when COVID hit, I was trying to enable our teams on how to use Salesforce while being remote from my kitchen table.
Yeah.
That was really fun. And yeah, I decided I just wanted to dig deeper into all things Salesforce. And it was during the pandemic that I kind of reskilled. I took a ton of trailheads. I sat for maybe 3 certifications, I think, before I came over to Salesforce. And I learned about the role of solution engineering through, meeting somebody at a conference. I just thought it was the coolest thing because I was like, I can, nerd out on the technology and really get in the weeds as much as I want. And then also still get to talk to customers, which was my favorite part about, being in a customer facing role, was just understanding who my customers were, what they were doing, how I could help them. And so, yeah, I landed here at Salesforce. I think it'll be close to 4 years now. Yeah, 2021. And I've been working with customers in the high-tech mid-market space that entire time. So throw me right into the fire, coming from a different industry, right into tech, working with tech customers. It's been quite a journey.
Well, I didn't know that you had a sales ops role, so that explains why I like you so much.
Let's explain it. Okay, so this is a point in our episode where we ask every guest to leave our listener with a point of view question. What questions should they ask themselves to help them create their own unique point of view?
Yeah. I think it's really, how can you make either your life or your customers' lives easier by leveraging some of this technology? Like, what does that look like? And then how can you enable yourself to be at the forefront of how you would implement that? How can you learn more about, the things to consider, the pitfalls to avoid, and the technology itself, and make sure that you have a seat at the table and how these things are going to be implemented, because that's ultimately going to impact your day-to-day or your customers' day-to-day. And you want to make sure that you have a hand in helping shape that.
I think that that's a great question. I think especially like zeroing in on like, how do you not only do it, but how do you put yourself at the forefront of that change? It's such an important question to ask, because it's it's all moving so fast, and it's hard to like imagine being at the forefront a lot of the time. So I think it's a good challenge for all of us. As much as I talk a big game about AI, we are not at the forefront from like an internal perspective. We have a lot of work to do. And so it's a constant challenge for myself as well. So it's a good one, Trisha. I appreciate it.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Trisha, for joining us. If you are not already subscribed to the Revenue Insiders podcast, make sure you're following us on your favorite podcast app. And Trisha, if anyone wants to follow you, best way to follow you is on LinkedIn, I assume.
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn.
You gotta
Awesome.
post those shoes. You gotta.
Yes, I know. I would love it to see a picture of those shoes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We'll do
Well,
that.
thanks everyone. Have a great day. If you're enjoying the Revenue Insiders, we'd love your support. Follow us, rate, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more listeners like you.